Matilda by Roald Dahl. A humble request to all the parents. Please buy paper books or borrow them from a library. Reading a book by turning the pages back and forth is fun. Please, for the sake of our children's eyes. Highlighted words are special words. Learn their meaning and say loudly. About the author. Roald Dahl was a spy, an ace fighter pilot, a chocolate historian, and a medical inventor. He was also the author of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Matilda, the BFG, and a treasury of original, evergreen, and beloved children's books. He remains for many the world's #1 storyteller. Matilda is a story about a preschool girl, Matilda, and her family, Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood, her parents, and her elder brother, Michael. In this story, we will meet Miss Honey, who is a wonderful teacher of Matilda. Miss Trunchbull is a principal of the school in which Matilda is studying. Bruce Bogtrotter is a preschool boy and Matilda's classmate. Amanda Tripp is Matilda's classmate and the best friend. The Reader of Books, Part 1. It's a funny thing about mothers and fathers. Even when their own child is the most disgusting little blister you could never imagine, they still think that he or she is wonderful. Some parents go further. They became so blinded by adoration, they managed to convince themselves their child has qualities of genius. Well, there is nothing very wrong with all this. It's the way of the world. It is only when the parents begin telling us about the brilliance of their own revolting offspring that we start shouting, "Bring us a basin, we are going to be sick." School teachers suffer a good deal from having to listen to these sort of twaddle from proud parents. But they usually get their own back when the time comes to write the end of term reports. If I were a teacher, I would cook up some real scorchers for the children of doting parents. Your son Maximilian, I would write, is a total washout. I hope you have a family business you can push him into when he leaves school, because he sure as heck won't get a job anywhere else. Or if I were feeling lyrical that day, I might write, "It is a curious truth. that grasshoppers have their hearing organs on the sides of the abdomen. Your daughter Vanessa, judging by what she has learned this term, has no hearing organs at all. I might even delve deeper into natural history and say the periodical cicada spent 6 years as a grub underground and no more than 6 days as a free creature of sunlight and air. Your son Wilfred had spent 6 years as a grub in this school, and we are still waiting for him to emerge from the chrysalis. A particularly poisonous little girl might sting me into saying Fiona has the same glacial beauty as an iceberg. But unlike the iceberg, she has absolutely nothing below the surface. I think I might enjoy writing end-of-term reports for the stinkers in my class. But enough of that. I have to get on. Occasionally, one comes across parents who take the opposite line, who show no interest at all in their children. And these, of course, are far worse than the doting ones. Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood were two such parents. They had a son called Michael and a daughter called Matilda, and the parents looked upon Matilda in particular as nothing more than a scab. A scab is something you have to put up with until the time comes when you can pick it off and flick it away. Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood looked forward enormously to the time when they could pick their little daughter off and flick her away, preferably into the next country or even further than that. It is bad enough when parents treat ordinary children as though they were scab or bunions. But it becomes somehow a lot worse when the child in question is extraordinary. And by that I mean sensitive and brilliant. Matilda was both of these things, but above all, she was brilliant. Her mind was so nimble and she was so quick to learn that ability should have been obvious even to the most half-witted of parents. But Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood were both so gormless and so wrapped up in their own silly little lives that they failed to notice anything unusual about their daughter. To tell the truth, I doubt they would have noticed had she crawled into the house with a broken leg. Matilda's brother Michael was a perfectly normal boy, but the sister, as I said, was something to make your eyes pop. By the age of 1.5, her speech was perfect, and she knew as many words as most grown-ups. The parents, instead of applauding at her, called her a noisy chatterbox and told her sharply that small girls should be seen and not heard. By the time she was 3, Matilda had taught herself to read by studying newspapers and magazines that lay around the house. At the age of 4, she could read fast and well, and she naturally began hankering after books. The only book in the whole of this enlightened household was something called Easy Cooking, belonging to her mother. And when she had read this from cover to cover, and when she had learned all the recipes by heart, she decided she wanted something more interesting. "Daddy," she said, "do you think you could buy me a book?" "A book?" he said. "What do you want a flaming book for?" "To read, Daddy." "What's wrong with the telly, for heaven's sake? We have got a lovely telly with a 12-inch screen, and now you come asking for a book? You are getting spoiled, my girl." Nearly every weekday afternoon, Matilda was left alone in the house. Her brother, 5 years older than her, went to school. Her father went to work, and her mother went out playing bingo in a town 8 miles away. Mrs. Wormwood was hooked on bingo and played it 5 afternoons a week. On the afternoon of the day when her father had refused to buy her a book, Matilda set out all by herself to walk to the public library in the village. This is the end of The Reader of Books, Part 1. See you soon with the next part.